Hello, hello. I'm here with Grammy Nominated producer and mixer, Jonathan Roye. So you grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
And how long you been in Nashville?
I moved here in 2012. So whatever.
12. Okay.
Whatever that math
7
is.
years.
Yeah.
6 years, 7 years.
6, 7 years, something like that.
So I know you went to North Texas, did you go to North Texas? We were kind of around that area, right?
Yeah. So I grew up down there. Yeah. I went to high school in South Fort Worth. I was a big jazz nerd.
Who was your band director?
Scene. Rudy Salazar.
I heard that name.
And then, but like I took lessons up there. I would drive up to North Texas like once a week for trombone lessons with Tony. And
nice. Okay.
Ended up going to UTA for the music business program, and they gave me a bunch of money. And but I was still like driving all over, playing gigs with those guys, and I'd go up and see Tony once a month for jazz lessons, and I was very different. I wanted to play in an orchestra back then. That was the thing. Like, I'm gonna practice 8 hours a day and study all these excerpts and go do a master's and get me a job.
So there was no inclination of like any type of working with Pro Tools or.
My only experience was playing you probably cut at Crystal Clear, like all the lab band records.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like we did all our big band records out there, and that was the only studio experience I'd ever had.
So where were you before Nashville?
I was in Dallas.
Oh, you were in Dallas. Okay. So you came here straight from Texas.
Yeah. So Texas, LA for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Back to Texas. Didn't know. Kind of went back to college for a second and got into some startup stuff and couldn't shake music, and then finally just moved here for like a last ditch effort, see if you can make something happen. So
well, that was a good time to come here in 2012. That was like probably on the cusp of a lot of like kind of bedroom studios that
because when I started, the whole bedroom studio thing was very new, and it wasn't super cool. People weren't totally down to come over to your house and.
Well, I remember one of the first stories you told me, which I thought was really cool, which I want to talk about because I love this record. And I think you mixed some of the record. Speaking of bedroom studios, is the Owl City record, which was done in like his mom's basement, was it not?
Yeah, it was all, I knew Adam from MySpace.
No kidding.
Because I was doing pop punk records back then.
Okay.
And so there was this website, Pure Volume, that you could toss some cash at, and they'd push your band to the front page for a week. And so he was always on there and like,
with different bands, not Owl City?
Oh, cool. It was just him.
Okay.
He was just lived up in Minnesota and I think he was working at like a box factory or something, and didn't really know what he was doing, making records in his basement with like Reason and Logic or something like that. And but yeah, he would just sort of send me stuff. We got to be friends online, and I do like Reason was really huge back then, so like we do like programming in that, and some of it made onto the record. And
so that whole record was pretty much in the box, right? I mean,
it was mixed out, probably outside of the box for sure.
Okay.
Or in and out.
Okay.
But yeah, it was all laptop. I think he had rented for vocals like a U87 Distressor or something like that, 1073, to cut the real deal vocals on.
Yeah.
But
that's a great way to. I mean that record. To me, when I heard that it was done in a bedroom and sounded like that, it's where you get your gears going in your head, because you're going into these studios and you're making these records and you're spending all these thousands and thousands of dollars, and you're like, and I've told the story on the podcast too, where you think about it like, I went to a web designer back in the day and was like, well, how much does that cost? And they're like, $25,000 to make your website. And I'm like, screw that, I'm going to learn how to make my own damn website.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah. So that gave you the kind of inspiration of, well, if he can make a record that sounds like that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I would say that people that aren't musicians that listen to music, that love music, it's like the mixing engineer. I don't think that you're quite as unsung as a mastering engineer. The mixing engineer is probably the unsung hero of a record, and probably turning a bedroom recording into something that sounds like it does. Am I wrong there? Or
yeah, to a point. I mean, I don't know. There's always like the cheesy comparison to a chef. It's like you can take the best chef in the world, but he's only as good as what you give him to cook the meal with. So at the end of the day, like, I'm only as good as what, like the song, the performance, the instruments, the room, it's only going to be as inspiring as that gets to me, you know. And then from there, it's like, yeah, you can do a lot or little or, you know, whatever.
But do you, like, when you say the word inspire, which I think is interesting, like, because when I mix stuff, I guess I'm inspired, but I really hate it. I'd rather somebody else would do it.
Yeah.
So when you say the word inspire, it's interesting to me. Like, do you feel, obviously a good song and a good track is going to make you feel energy to want to spend time and do it.
Yeah.
But what happens when you get, what happens when you get those songs? I mean, I always think about it when we're doing like a horn session and we get a song and we're like, okay, this is good. This is somebody's dream.
Yeah.
I know that it's probably not going to be on the radio, but you give your best because they're paying you to do your best job.
For sure. Yeah.
But do you, like, what fires you up to make you want to spend the time? Like, if somebody's sending you a track.
Well, for like when you first start out, it's just about getting better. And so for me, it was just reps. Like every song you do is one song closer to being good, or to getting to the point where you can start working on better records or doing cooler stuff or whatever it is you want to do. And then, I mean, these days it's just, I want to do good work. You know, I want people to like it, you know, so they want to hire me again. You know, and it's the same thing. It's like a lot of the stuff, the indie stuff, like it's someone else's dream. Like they're paying your rate. So it's like you want to do your best.
Of course, yeah.
But, you know, at the end of the day, it's also kind of only going to be as good as, you know, as it is, you know, as a song, and, you know, they are as artists or whatever.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of people that are in their bedroom, and I get some messages from people that listen to this, like up in Canada, that do stuff, and, you know, overseas. And I think, you know, the mixing element of stuff it can be so daunting, probably because it was so outboard oriented at one point, where there's knobs and buttons and all that kind of stuff. And it's not so much an instrument, you know, like I think that, I guess for the people that don't understand mixing, I mean, how would you, it's an art form in itself. I mean, how would you kind of summarize, like if somebody's in there listening to this that lives in Orillia, Ontario, in their parents' basement.
Absolutely.
And they're like a singer-songwriter, they're playing guitar into a microphone, singing. It could just be as simple as 2 guitars and vocals and backgrounds. And they're sending something to you, and they want you to make it better. You know, how, like, what process do you go through when you accept that to try to make that better?
Pull it up. First, you got to figure out what kind of a record it is. You know, is it a big, loud, in-your-face pop thing? Is it a really small, like, intimate, transparent, like, you know, like 4 people in a room kind of a thing? And then... So
would you ask for references? Like this?
Yeah, like what kind of the record? What's your goal? Like,
so you're asking questions.
Do you want to get this on radio? Do you not care about that? You just want to make something really interesting? Like, how married are you to it? Or like, if I hear something, can I chase that down and build something crazy? Or do you really just love it the way it is? Because with a lot of the pop records you get, it's like a lot of the roughs sound pretty good, and it's just sort of that last 15%, and it's like, cool, I'm just sort of polish this up and make it bigger and better and hit a little harder, and you're kind of good
to go.
Yeah, but then other people are like, they get to a point and they're like, I don't know how to finish it. Like, what do you hear? Like, what can you do? And sometimes it's, you know, hey, sometimes it's adding a pad or redoing something or building something crazy with the drums or...
So you're almost, I mean, I know that there's mixing engineers that will just take it and just make it the best they can with what they have. It's beautiful. Like, I know on your website, the one thing that you say that I love so much is how much, I mean, you've said it probably 5 or 6 times in your FAQs of like how much you love music. Like, am I affordable? Yes, because I love music. Let's talk. Like, I love that, you know? And it sounds to me like that's what you're saying, is where you're getting something and you're saying to the artist, hey, I think this could be better if we do this. Or they're saying help. And I think that making them feel comfortable and safe to say help. I mean, is that a newer thing for mixing engineers? Or has that always kind of been that way?
I think it's kind of always been that way.
Okay.
Like when
I'm learning so much. I'm stoked to have you here because I want to learn too.
But it always just depends. But I mean, the way I look at it is everybody's just trying to make it as good as it can be. And if that means, you know, I mean, I've had stuff where like we've really literally just chopped the forms up and be like, man, that section's just too long now that we hear it. Like, can we just chop that in half? Or we don't need the intro this long, or you know, or is there a way we could put a turn in? Like the second verse hits way too quick. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, well, we could do this and drag this and build this, and could you come by with your guitar and we could hit, you know, this part, you know, and it's just sort of tying things up the best way you can, and, you know, based on the budget and the resources and what they're down for, and, you know.
Would you say that the way that I've always thought of mixing, so you're obviously looking at it, you're listening with critical ears from a production standpoint. Mm-hmm. Do most mixing engineers do that, or do most mixing engineers listen from an EQ kind of balance standpoint? I mean, are there phases that you go through?
Yeah, I think these days it's a big gray area, producing the mixing for sure.
Yeah,
because you hit a point where sometimes it is a production. Sometimes, it's hitting a mute button, and it's like, oh, like we don't need 5 pads. We really only need, because once you start EQing stuff and getting things to move together and sit better together, like something that sounds small is actually going to end up sounding really big. And it's like when you're in there just sort of putting it together, you don't really realize that, because you're just, the kick drum doesn't feel big enough, so let's just add 2 more. When it's really like, you really just need 1 and get rid of all this gunk down here. And
when you say gunk, you're saying all the kind of the low end frequencies.
Yeah, everything's sort of on top of it that doesn't need to be there. And so once you start carving out the puzzle, you start to realize like, oh, we need more of something or less of something, or especially with, you know, younger artists and producers, they don't realize, like, you know, once they hear it, it's like, oh yeah, you needed to double that. Like that's what you're hearing. Mm-hmm. So like you can just do that, send it to me, we drop it in, or you can come over and we'll just do it and it'll be here, and, you know.
Dude, I don't know, man. I mean, the engineers that I've, obviously the wrong ones that I've worked with, it's like that seems like you're putting a lot of care and love into the music and making the music the best it can be.
But that's the only way you do anything cool, I think.
I totally agree.
Because like I had that experience with huge name, I won't say any names, like big name, like mix guys, like on like the second like label thing I got to produce, and it's like, this guy couldn't have given a shit.
Yeah.
Like unless your name is like so and so. I mean, like we showed up at 10 because he showed us in LA traffic, and nothing was even mixed. And he's like, cool, I'm gonna go mix your record. And we were like, when's it gonna be done? It's like 11 tunes. He's like, oh, probably at 1 o'clock.
Oh no.
And so we go get coffee, come back, and it's like, doesn't listen to any of our ideas, like rolls his eyes at like you could just tell he's annoyed the entire time. And it's like, dude, you're getting paid like $7,000 a song, $10,000 a song, whatever, to do this. And it's like, I get that we're not like your favorite thing this year to work on, but, you know, like it's still a job, you know. Yeah. So I don't know. I just remember going through that. And
is it a perspective thing? Like, is it just their...
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I mean, those guys are insanely busy. Like, I mean, they're burning through like 600, 700, 800 songs a year.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's a certain amount of time in a day, but a lot of it's like, you know, it's all outboard. So it's like they're going to charge you to recall it, you know, or it's not just 2 clicks and a song's up and you're in and out. But at the same time, it's like, dude, like if you pay me that much to work on your record, like come over, camp out, and like we'll hang out
for a couple weeks.
And, you know, we'll do whatever to get you happy, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within reason. So yeah, I don't know. I like to make stuff that's cool. And I always, even if it's something I'm not into, like I can usually find some part of it that I like,
that resonates with
you. Yeah, and work from there. And, you know, because you know, I might not care about it, but that doesn't mean they don't. It's come this far, and they've spent this much money on it so far. So you know, I'm sure you deal with the same thing with like being a session guy on stuff. Like,
yeah, I mean, I think the mentality is that as soon as you're going into my mentality of any of that is, as soon as you're doing something as a job that you're going in that you don't like to be doing, or you're not giving it what you should be giving. Like I had this conversation, you know, early on talking with Roy, and we were talking about as a musician, as you go through different stages of like, you know, you start out teaching, and then you start out doing wedding gigs, and then you start out doing, you know, club dates, and then you start playing live, and then you work your way to the session world. And the way that I kind of judged whether I mean, obviously if you're financially strapped, you do whatever you need to do to get it done.
Yeah.
But the way that I judged whether I was kind of done with what came previously was if I was on something and wasn't feeling it in my heart and giving it 100%, then I needed to go in a different direction because I wasn't servicing what I was being paid to do and servicing the music, because mostly all that stuff would be music.
Yeah.
But there are people that do wedding gigs and they love that, and I think that's great.
Yeah, for sure.
But that was an example of, I don't want to be here. What can I do to get off of this?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's a shame that people like that, and I'm sure I could say a name or two that were probably those people that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Stories. But yeah, I mean, those people, it's a shame they get to the top of the mountain like that, and that they're just so, they lose their perspective and lose the reality of why they climbed to begin with.
Yeah.
You know, that, or they're just really busy, like you say, and they're
sometimes, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
do you think that, like,
who knows?
What's the guy? I did a really great track for Brandon Ratcliffe.
Oh, cool.
And the guy that's mixing that record is the guy that mixed John Mayer's New Light. Can you help me with that one?
Did he do?
He's an older guy
Did
who
he
just
do the
resurfaced.
Leon Bridges stuff, or is that a different guy?
I'm not sure. Who mixed Leon Bridges?
I don't know.
Because that record is
I hung out with those dudes in Fort Worth when I was home for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
They've
Okay.
got like this little spot
Really?
down at Hemp Hill in this like warehouse.
Is that where they just work on things? And wow.
Yeah, because Leon, I think he grew up down around Crowley or something. And
I knew he was
just
Texas. I didn't
hung
know
out
that.
with those dudes, and I don't know how he made it. I'd love to look up his story, but
Yeah, I mean, you could tell when you listen to that record how it's a band. Like it's not just Leon.
well, I'm just hanging out with those guys. That's their whole vibe. Is just 5 people in a room. Here's some microphones, go. Like,
so good.
kind of a thing. But yeah.
Well, I don't know if he mixed it. I know that the guys were telling me that the New Light guy, because I love that track, is fabulous in my opinion, and I love the way it was mixed, and I'm just curious. Like, it makes me wonder, like, if this gentleman that you're speaking of, like, if John Mayer comes to him and says, you know, he'll probably say, here's 15 grand, 20 grand for a track.
Yeah.
I mean, that person's going to spend a day, 2 days, because it's a
they'll
John
for
Mayer
sure
thing.
burn a day or two, or whatever the deadline is going to allow them to do.
Is it because the artist is bigger? Because they're like, people's more ears are going to be on it? Like, what
Probably.
do you think?
Yeah. They're probably more inspired. It's, you know, they probably heard The Rough and it was this great
something
song,
too, yeah,
and they were like, oh yeah, this is going to be a fun day at work.
So what you're saying is, when they look at things, that they feel like things might be a little beneath them and it's not inspiring to them, so they just kind of run the gamut.
Yeah, and I'm sure everybody's like that to a point. I mean,
I think
like you get certain gigs that come across that are like way more interesting than maybe something else, and
yeah, I'd like to pretend that there's a possibility that we don't get into those places. Like, I feel like our generation might be a little different with that. I'm hoping so. I don't feel like I'm there yet, because I'm not at any top of the mountaintop.
I try not to be.
Yeah.
You know, but I definitely have days where I'm burned out, or like, that's the thing these days that I try to get good at, is like keeping the business running, scaling it, keeping the quality up, and then not like staying inspired.
Yeah.
You know, there are days where it's just like, I don't want to sit in this
do.
dark room for 15 hours and
Well, you just told me there's no windows.
yeah. Work on these demos for these publishers that you know are probably gonna die on a hard drive somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
you know, but again, it's like they're paying you,
Yeah.
and these songwriters, it's their dreams on the line, so it's like you should do a good job. Like,
Well, and it's interesting, you know, you and I are big Rogan fans, and, you know, we haven't really sat down and talked about that a lot, but one of the things that he always talks about is the key to, he says the word happiness, which I don't really particularly believe that that's such a thing, but the key to being a good human and spending, you know, life on this earth in a good place is always finding something that's difficult and always pushing yourself and always kind of like learning new things.
Yeah.
I listened to there's this really great, I just drove back from California, and I was listening to Oprah has this great podcast called Masterclass.
okay.
And she interviews, you know, LL Cool J, Justin Timberlake, Smokey Robinson,
Oh, wow.
all these like really
I'll have to check that
successful
out.
people. And they're like 30, 40 minutes, and it's like everybody has a story.
Cool.
This is their story. So I was listening to Timberlake, and I mean, Timberlake's obviously super successful in all of his genres. And thinking about all the things that he does, he plays everything really down the middle. Like, I'm not a huge fan, like I wouldn't go buy a record, but I respect the heck of what he does. But he doesn't take a lot of risks, you know. Dick in the Box is probably the biggest risk that he ever took. But
Yeah.
but he said in there, he's like, I always want to be the novice in the room.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like that is how we're built as humans. And I wonder if you get to a certain place where you can already see the finish line, and you just want to get there as fast as possible, because everything is relative.
That's a good point.
You know?
I always see I've always felt very fortunate to have grown up in DFW, in that insane music ed world down there,
Mm-hmm.
because it was really hard. It was hard for me. If I wasn't practicing, it wasn't happening. Like, and I had to like put time.
What
in
wasn't
every day.
happening? Like the playing wasn't
Yeah,
happening?
like
Okay.
just I couldn't do it.
Okay.
You know, it wasn't where it should be, and it was one of those things where it was really hard, but. And I always told myself, like, if you're the worst player in the band and you keep doing that, like one day you're gonna wind up in some pretty cool rooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I still do that today. Like, that's why I moved here. Was like I was in Dallas doing records, and I was the smartest dude in the room, and I was like, well, something's definitely wrong with this.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, like, let's go hang out in Nashville where all these cool records are made that I love, and see what those guys are doing differently. And, you know, and even like I sat in on a bunch of sessions with Frampton and Chuck Ainley and that whole band. They've been cutting a bunch, and it's just like watching those guys work. It's like, oh, like I don't know anything, you know.
That's an exciting feeling.
But yeah, it's always just.
I mean, it's scary for some people.
I love, you know, that's the thing. I love being under the gun in music school. You know, I'd miss that because I always thrived under that. Like having the gun to your head. It's like sight reading was always the ace up my sleeve. I loved reading, like off the cuff. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I don't get that feeling very often. Every now and then I'll get a call for a mix, and it's like, yo, dude, we need like your best 3 hours. Like, can you do it now? And it's like, yeah, let's go.
That'd be fun. Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
But you know, I usually don't get that anymore. So I miss that about music schools because that's how you get better.
It's so funny that we're in this profession where we can do this like all of our lives. Because when you say under the gun, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, where it's like, you know, you compare it to sports where it's like it's game 7, what you got?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, for sure.
And I feel so bad for people that don't make it in sports and that are like, you know, that are just the hometown hero and they're, you know, and they don't have a game 7 anymore. And it's funny that you say that. We don't get a lot of that, but we still do, like the 3 hours. Or you're in a stressful situation in the studio and you're sitting next to players that are badasses and they're like, okay, what you got? What's your idea? And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, let's
you
go.
Know, yeah, what do you got? You know, what's the young guy got? And it's like, I agree with you. If you're not in those situations, what's the purpose?
That's how you get better.
Absolutely.
You know, like you have to, I don't know. I loved those. There's a handful of professors I love because of just how fucking brutal and honest and tough they were. Because those were the ones that made you really good.
Yeah.
Because if they do their job, when you walk out, you can come to a place like Nashville and you're gonna be fine. Like I don't get intimidated too often musically. You know, I'm usually pretty aware of what's going on, and I could make a chart if I had to or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's because, you know, like I'd show up to lessons and you'd be like, all right, dude, go. And you'd be like, sounds bad. Or, you know, they'd give you some impossible thing to read down and, you know, you rack your brain against the wall until you figure it out. And
do you think that that's, you know, I've been thinking a lot about this because I'm curious your opinion on it because I've thought a lot about that. Like I think that, and I've made the mistake of thinking that that's something that's in our DNA. Like when you're thrown to the fire, I mean, they always say like, you know, preparation and luck, opportunity, all that bullshit.
Yeah.
But when you're thrown to the fire, like, can you rise above? And I think the thing that I've been reading this Jordan Peterson book, which, you know, I definitely recommend to you. We were talking a little bit about that. And he talks about putting yourself in situations where you're uncomfortable. And the more you do it, the more you put yourself in a situation that's uncomfortable, the more comfortable you're going to get with the situation. Yeah. So if you keep throwing yourself into the under fire situation, eventually you're going to get your feet or gain your ground and your feet, and you're going to be able to move forward. Do you think it's like, I mean, obviously it's either in your DNA or it's not too. But do you think it's a learned process? So this person that's sitting in Orillia, Ontario, that's daunted by coming to Nashville, but writes great songs, is like, holy shit, I got to get up in front of people and sing my songs. Like, what do they do to prepare for that? For the 3-hour mix session, you know, whatever. Like, what? Do you think that people can get into that place?
I think you can. I think at that point, it kind of comes down to like, is this for you or not for you?
Interesting.
Maybe. But I also want to say the logical side is like, no, just do it. Like you know, because I'll have people hit me up. It's like, man, how do I get good at mixing? And I'm like, fuck up 200 songs.
Yeah, fail 200 times.
Just keep ruining people's songs, and one day you're gonna work on something, and you're gonna listen to it a month later and be like, I like that. Yeah. Okay, cool. You know, but at the same time, like, unless you're crazy enough to want to punish yourself over and over and over, you know. Yeah. to keep going, I kind of know. That's why like sometimes this world isn't really suited for everybody. Like you have to be a nice blend of crazy. But if you can make it calculated, that's where I think you can make some stuff happen.
Maybe that's,
I don't know.
Dude, this is a great conversation because I've been flipping on it because my thing was you're either built for it or you're not. So
I for sure would go there first.
But maybe you're not built for. Maybe I'm thinking about the wrong thing that you're built for. Maybe what you're built for is the ability to be calculated, the ability to be a solver of the problem of how do I get from A to B.
Yeah.
Not that I'm gonna fail and pick myself up.
Yeah.
Like because I look at what you're doing and where you're at and all the different ventures. Like you're saying stuff like, yeah, I want to scale, but I want to keep my content great. And I see your mix notes thing you have on YouTube. You got like 32,000 subscribers, and like you're doing all these things. Like you have your toes are dipped in all these different pools, and you're making it all work. Like sync thing we just talked about doing sync stuff. And I think that has to be part of today's musician.
Oh,
right?
For sure. Like versatility, 1,000%.
Right?
Like
a little bit here and a little bit there.
I mean, even in life. Generally, I mean, if you want to be like, the world is expensive and it's not getting cheaper ever, right? So it's like it would be advantageous of you, to learn about money and to learn about different income streams and things you can do passively to help you get from A to B. And it's it's the same thing in the music business. So and I mean, some of it's just I'm just a crazy person and I like to stay busy and like we all have slow months.
Yeah.
The YouTube thing was just an experiment.
In a slow
back in the day.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if, let's do this.
And when did you start that?
When I moved here.
So 2012.
Because I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So I was, sitting around playing guitar on the couch, like.
So you could have been a sad sack sitting on the couch going, oh, I'm in Nashville. Nobody's knocking at my door.
Yeah.
But instead you were like, what can I do?
Yeah.
I love that, dude.
But dude, what's funny is like through that, like that's how I got the Kelsea gig.
No kidding.
Yeah, Forrest.
Yeah, by the way, he mixes all of Kelsea Ballerini's stuff. By the way.
And Forrest, this kid just emails me, and like I didn't know anybody, and he's like, "Hey man, like you want to get lunch? I'm in Nashville. I'm a songwriter." And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like please don't murder me." But yeah. And we hit it off and got to be friends, and I started doing demos for him, and I was helping him. He had just gotten into the track guy, laptop thing, and so I'd help him with software or whatever, and then. It was like, hey man, I'm doing this record. Like, do you want to help? I'm like, okay. And then I didn't even know it was a real record until.
Do you think that's late. Yeah, just too. Yeah, I know that feeling too.
Yeah.
You get the track and you start putting horns on it, and you're halfway through, and you're like, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
Like, where's this gonna go?
Yeah.
Did I charge enough?
I remember like he came over for tweaks, and he's like, yeah, it goes to like satellite next week, and I'm like, wait, what? It's going. I thought this was like some kind of developmental thing.
The publishing house thing that's going to see the floor. Yeah.
But
you learn. You have to do those ones, right?
Yeah. Figure it out,
Do you think that the world, I love your perspective on all this because I know the way you think, or I think I know the way you think, just by following you and seeing your vibes and stuff. I mean, do you think that the world rewards those people that what do they reward? I mean, when I say the word reward, the word reward is we're sitting here on a, what is that? I don't even know. It was Thursday afternoon.
Friday? Thursday?
Yeah,
sure.
4 o'clock, and it's like, we don't have a job. Like, we don't fight rush hour. Like, I literally have not left the house today, and I've already done sessions in my place. Like, and you didn't need to leave the house unless to come over here. So, like, that's a reward to me. Like, we get to live the life that we want to live and choose our choice. Like, choose our own adventure, basically. And I'd like to think that we've earned that, and we're continuing to earn it and continue to not take it for granted.
Yeah.
But what do you, that one I just want to qualify the word reward. So what do you think, how does the universe step in? Does it reward the hard work? Does it reward the smarts? Does it reward all of the above, the talent? Like,
well, that's a lot of people's problem. Like they're trying to figure out how to make it in life, whatever that means. And it's like, I think the first thing you have to get is that like the world doesn't owe you shit. Like, like you wake up every day and the world stares you in the face and it says, okay, what do you got?
Yeah.
And, if you invest in yourself, if you invest in your future and in relationships with people around you, like you can get pretty damn close to what you want. And I think it all starts there. I think a lot of people get a little entitled. They think they're owed stuff. I see that in musicians, especially younger ones a lot. Like, oh, well, I went to whatever school and
I was going to say, ones that come out of
played
school,
in whatever, and it's
yeah.
like, yeah, but who cares?
Yeah.
You know.
I get messages from new people moving to town like that too,
dude,
and they're like, "Hey man,
too.
how do I start doing sessions?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, you start by sitting in a van and playing a wedding in Alabama.
Eat shit for 15 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't want to hey, some of them step into it and they're brilliant and it's great. I'm not going to try to stop that, but yeah, you have to fail and pay the dues and whatever.
Yeah, you have to actually deserve the thing in order to get it. And if you're not putting in the work and you're not taking the risks and going for it, because I'm pretty sure
What do you define as risk? What does risk mean?
I mean, not getting a 9 to 5, you know, staying up all night, practicing, studying, listening to records, going to shows, trying to put yourself around people way better than you so you can figure it out, doing everything you can.
And being okay with that, allowing your ego to be okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people, that's kind of like, they look at that, it scares them. And so they're like, oh, I have, you know, health insurance and a 9 to 5 and security, and which that stuff's cool and there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know. Like, I remember seeing my parents work hard forever only to be let go at a job that didn't really care about them, and they didn't really have as much control as they thought they did. So I was like, well, shit, I'm just going to go do this myself and have, you know.
Did that shape your desire to kind of want to be that independent?
I've always been independent.
Okay.
I mean, I think growing up, it was rough. I mean, like, my dad left when I was 13. My mom had her own struggles and stuff, was in and out of rehab at one time. And so I was just a latchkey kid. And like, if there was something I wanted, like, I just figured it out. So I'd sit around and practice all day and listen to records, and, you know, that's just all I did. And if I wanted something, like, I'd go get a job and figure out how to buy new cymbals for the drum set or whatever, get a car.
I love that. If I wanted something, I went out and earned to buy that thing.
I mean, that's just the way.
That's the way it should be, but I don't think that's normal.
But there wasn't money for stuff, you know, like, so. Yeah, I've just always had that. I don't know. I've always just been independent. Like, I hated group work in school. Like, fuck group work. Like, can I just do this in half the time and go home? Like, it'll be just as good. Come on. Like, I don't look at these people. You know.
I know.
Yeah.
That's so funny. But I mean, that shapes who you are, you know. But do you think that it kind of it puts you in a place? Do you have any regrets about any decisions? Like, as far as I mean, it's an isolating job.
Yeah.
Like, you're there, you're
for
kind of
sure.
working by yourself. You're the one, you know, you're making all the decisions pretty much, and then you're handing it off in one foul swoop. It's not like, hey, do you like this vocal? What do you think? I mean, that happens sometimes, I'm sure. And they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. Then you move on. It's like, here's all my choices. Bam.
Most of my regrets were just, my 20s were pretty rough. I mean, I had some success with music early on, and I'd made a little bit of money, but I just remember being super depressed and just trying to figure out life. And, you know, I didn't really have a lot of positive people around me. So, but, you know, eventually I met some people and I got smart and I started, like, reading books. And, you know, you figure out that, like, if you want something, you have to go make some changes. If you don't like where you're at, you need to change something in order to get better or whatever. So a lot of it's just not figuring, like money stuff I could have done way sooner. Just being an idiot when I was 24, you know, and not figuring it out until you're like 30. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, because it was tough at times, I was forced to get smarter, and I don't know if I'd change it. I think about that sometimes. I'm like, well, I kind of like that it was tough and I'd made mistakes because I figured it out eventually. So I don't know.
That's a part of the failing thing that we talked about, right? Like,
yeah.
That fail makes you who you are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, anybody that's why nobody likes rich kids, you know? It's like a 16-year-old with a Porsche is not, like, what are the chances that's going to be a nice, humble, giving dude? Like,
I was going to say, what's that person going to turn into? I mean, that's interesting. I mean, everybody says that whatever shapes you, but it is mostly the failures that make you. I mean, it's so beautiful.
You sort of get better in spite of the tough cards in life, whatever that is, you know.
And everybody, I mean, no matter what your upbringing is, I mean, and if we want to play the flip side, a 16-year-old kid in a Porsche he's got some bad cards. Because he's going to have, he might have worse cards than people that are poor or whatever. Because he's going to fail at life if he doesn't realize that that's not something that you just get given.
Oh yeah,
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if if you think about it, I guess what would you rather have? You know, like would you rather have your failures that made you who you are and the person that you are to treat people the way that you treat them, or would you rather be that 16-year-old kid with the Porsche? I don't know. It's an interesting thought. I don't think the long run, you're right. That's a good place to be.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, every now and then you see people that are maybe born into a situation, or they get lucky, in
the music industry, you're seeing that, like the sons of whatevers that get the success of the whatevers.
But dude, like it almost never lasts. You know, like if you really want like an authentic, long career, I really think it's got to be genuine and from a pure place that, you know, like you've got to earn it.
Well, I was thinking James Taylor was on that Oprah thing, and I was listening to him talk, and his son Ben plays.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, I love James Taylor, and his type of music is kind of the stuff that I would love to like aspire to kind of grow off of. Yeah. And I was like, I would not want to be Ben Taylor. Like, I am glad I'm Tyler Summers. Like, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
But then there are other situations where it works out beautifully. Like you look at Norah Jones, for instance, you know, I mean, but I wouldn't want that either because she was estranged from her father for so long.
Yeah.
And, you know, and then obviously he came back into her life and she had all this success, but that was earned because she was super talented. She grew up, you know, single parent, and she busted her ass, and she's all that stuff.
Yeah.
So everybody's story is different. There are situations where you're kind of like, that little push from behind that you get, like it would be nice to have that sometimes.
Yeah.
But then would it really? I don't know. The older I get, the less I would want that.
Every now and then, there are a couple times it would have been nice to have a little bit of a push, but not. I mean, I know some kids in this town that I'm just like, dude, what does this guy do? Like, how does he afford to live here and he doesn't have a job? Like, what? You know, and it's all paid for. But then it's like, I look at their work ethic and it's dog shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, you're never going to figure it out because, you know, like, you know, you show up, you know, that's always a thing that you really have to deserve it if you want it. And it's like, I know people that complain about not getting the promotion. It's like, dude, you show up late, you leave early, and you watch YouTube on your laptop at your desk the whole day. Like, no shit, you didn't get the promotion. Like, why would anybody give you more money for that?
Is that the entitlement thing we were talking about? Or is that deeper than that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see that all the time. And it's like, you just got to work harder. But it's funny because if you work harder, like you'll afford yourself more options in life, you know? Like that's kind of the thing about, at least with money, is it's like, it's not really a bad thing, but it can be if you make bad choices with it. But yeah, I mean, it's like the more money you have, the more options in life you have. You know, you don't have to work 9 to 5. You can do this or pay somebody to do this, and you know.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those situations where when you're in the industry, you're always working hard for something. And then once you get to a place, I guess, you know, I don't know if you're in this place, but I'm curious. I'm just curious to ask, like what, when you look at, you know, again, Jordan Peterson talks about it. All these people talk about this, where they have like whatever it's called, their North Star, or their purpose, whatever that is, you know, and you have to love the process. You obviously love the process because you love your job. Yeah. But what is does that end game of what you want to get to, which is not really an end game because once you get there, there's no point of going past it. But do you have a bunch of offshoots of things that you're doing? Like, do you want mixed notes to grow more? Do you want to be a better sync writer? Do you want to be a better guitar player? Do you want to be a better mixer? Like, what drives you? Or is it just the process that drives you and it's allowing you the fruit of your labor to live the life that you live?
I think for me, I just like making stuff is what I've figured out recently. That's
the process that you love.
Yeah. Give me a pile of money and let me sit in a room and whatever, it's a record or a song, or I do some investments with startups, whether it's like a business or something. I built a web design company when I was in Texas with a friend. We grew and we sold off. I just like making things, you know, at the end of the day. I like staying busy and being creative and figuring out problems. And I think I enjoy learning. I read a lot. You know, that's why I think music was always so fun, was cracking the code on that next thing, or you know,
and there really is always
constant learning. Always, even
Yeah.
still today, like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm constantly reading articles and listening to podcasts and watching videos or whatever. But yeah, I just like making stuff, and if something's interesting and it feels right, whether it's music or non-music, I'll go for it, you know.
Do you keep yourself open to things and open to opportunities
I think
people
that's,
bring to you? Yeah.
I think that's key. Like,
Yeah.
I tend to stay away from people that are too narrow. If they're way too far right or left, or this is the only way of doing this one thing, that feels like a dangerous place to be most of the time to me, you know? So yeah, like having an open mind and being self-aware, and I think it's important to know about the world and different things, and, you know, culture and technology and music, and, you know.
Well, I saw in your mix notes thing, I wanted to talk about the idea of like the hustle. I mean, like you are, you know, you do a great job of that. I watch you on social media. You are a good hustler, and you obviously have some things on your thing about how to do that, like how to get work from social media, how to get work from, you've got some people on there that have talked about it. I don't think that Facebook one that was another guy that did that one, but on the mix notes thing, right? You have people that kind of talk about certain things.
Yeah, I think at one point we experimented with I thought about just building like, and it's like an idea I've still kicked around, is just building like an aggregate kind of a site with just different people creating content.
Cool, yeah.
And just kind of being like, have one place to come and learn about all different kinds of stuff, music.
Well, what's your view? I mean, you know, obviously this is a loaded question, but unfortunately, social media is incredibly important in our line of work, and it can be validating. And like we talked about before this, you and I have gotten to the stage where we're deleting certain apps off of our phone, like Instagram and Facebook, and turning it off and putting it away. And I remember when I was just hanging out with my parents out in California, like literally I would go golfing with my dad, and usually I'd have my phone and I'd take stories about like golfing, seeing these beautiful palm trees, and I was like, screw that, it's going in the bedroom, and I'm not checking it for like 6 hours. It was amazing.
Oh, it's great.
But if I had done that, perhaps I would perpetuate this thing of like, I'm doing something cool, and you know, people, it's a neat thing, and like people are in my life and they remember, oh yeah, Tyler, I should call him for this. So maybe I lost out on opportunities. But at this point, I don't really care. Because I just want to share what I feel is doing something, you know. But if you were to give me kind of your overall look on social media and how it affects today's, I mean, you work with a lot of young artists too. And some of those people you work with are like masters of social media.
They can be, sometimes to a fault, maybe, I think.
Like too much focus on it. Less on the music.
Yeah, I see that a lot, like especially like if we're doing tweaks or changes on a mix. And it's like, if they're, like I've literally had artists, I'd have to like just take a break for 20 minutes while they do like an Instagram photo session in my studio, which is cool, whatever, I get it. Like, it's a cool room, hang out, have fun, do your thing. But like, I also need to get this done, and I need to make sure you love it, and I don't want to sit here all day while you're flipping through your phone. You know? So we do need to work. And like, especially like in tracking sessions, that'll kind of, my fuse starts to get a little shorter when I see people just like constantly just on the phone. It's like, dude, like you're paid to be engineering this record. Like, why aren't you, you know?
It has become kind of a disrespectful thing, hasn't it?
It can be. There's a balance to it. I mean, everybody will check it real fast and flip their phone over, and that's totally fine. That isn't. But like, if it's a thing and you're like on Instagram Live and I'm trying to do my job, and you're bugging me and asking me stupid, like, I'm gonna get pissed off. Like, I don't know if that's,
oh my god, I want to see those videos.
I don't know if I'm just old or what, but I'm gonna get pissed off. Like, I don't want to be on TV right now. Like, I'm trying to do good work. But at the same time, as far as I do it, like, Facebook is sort of like close friends, family. Like, I don't really post anything personal on the internet, period. But I'll probably be a little more personal there. Instagram is just work stuff.
Work, yeah.
If I'm doing something cool, I'll take a photo or whatever. Maybe the story, if I'm at home doing something, it's real quick. I don't do it a lot. Maybe like a photo a week, if that. I don't know. And I try not to brag, but I mean, it's a thing like with what we do. Like, people want to hire people that are doing stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I don't think there's anything wrong if you're doing something cool on a cool session or at the house cutting, like, cool, take a photo, whatever. Put it away. Like, that's a good thing. Hashtag it. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because, yeah, like, I'll get hit up for work on Instagram. Like, shoot me a DM, and then I'm like, yeah, email me. Like, we'll figure it out. But I see some people that may take it a little too far. Some people might build themselves up to be maybe something they're not, you know?
That's interesting.
That's the thing I see with younger kids that are really good at killing it at Instagram. And it's like, wow, this guy's got 20,000 followers. Yeah. All this interaction, but then it's like you go to his site and you get his credits and he has that shit. And it doesn't sound that good.
Or they drop a track and it's shitty. Yeah.
And it's like, maybe you need to spend more time working. And it's like, I get it though. So it's like, I can't really shit on the kid because it's like, hey man, like everybody has this opportunity and you invested in it and good on you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's like, especially in a town like Nashville where everybody knows everybody and everybody works with everybody, it's that can get a little sideways if you're not careful, especially if you're young. If you're young and you have a lot of potential and it's like, dude, this kid's good, give him 5 years. You know, and that's a place where it's like, hey man, like do your thing and it's going to come. Like, but you need to triple down on your craft and like really dial it in, and I guarantee you all this other stuff is going to happen but do it authentically and don't, you know, because I see a lot of people that they're badass at Instagram. They're better at Instagram than they are session work or whatever. You know? And
sure.
That's kind of dangerous because then you're just the kid in town that's like, oh yeah, that's that Instagram guy that, you know, posts crappy songs all day long. And you're like, and then me and all my friends text about you because we do. Yeah. And it's not good for anybody.
There's that Instagram.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that. I mean, you can build up a hype because that's what, I mean, I understand like you got to build up a hype because you're fighting for everybody's attention. Yeah. But if you build up that hype at the expense of your art, that's not doing good for anybody. Yeah.
So it's like, be authentic with it, but I don't think anybody should, because I've seen the flip side of that where you get a bunch of like, and it's usually from older people that get kind of crabby with that stuff. And it's like, well, dude, like.
You mean in sessions and stuff like that? Or what do you mean?
Or just like at the whole culture in general. Okay. And it's like, well, dude, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, there's nothing braggy about it. I mean, I guess you can be. Like, if you're 3 photos a day, all day, every day, like, you know, like, I'm going to mute you at that point. Like,
I think there's a way to go about, I mean, what do they call it? The humble brag. Yeah. I mean, there's that, which is the worst than bragging. Worse than But, I mean, there's a way to go about it and be genuine, I think.
Oh,
you know?
Totally.
I mean, I thought a lot about that, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, especially like in the horn world, because a lot of people in the horn world just they've been spending, as you know, as a trombone player, they spend way too much time practicing and don't really look at social media.
And they spend 3 hours doing like long tones
before they even get to the session.
Yeah, they haven't even played anything real yet. Like,
but I think you can be genuine. I mean, try to poke fun at it or be thankful for the opportunity, but in a positive way.
Well, it's like, I'm not going to feel bad for something good that happens. And if I want to
if I see you in a session with like, I thought of the name Kid Rock, but I think there's poking fun at that situation.
Oh yeah,
but that
was a wild day.
I bet it was. But it's like I'm happy for that. Like I'm like, yeah, my buddy's doing this great thing with this artist, probably making a bunch of money, and they're making a track, and it's great. Yeah. But if it was like you with a selfie with Kid Rock in the background,
it gets
I like Office for the Day shit. Like you know, like it's.
Well, you don't ever want it to distract from the job. The whole reason you're there to begin with. Yeah. You know, and that's
you're trying to access a part of your body that you can't, like, it's not like you have a hand and you use your hand. It's like you're accessing a part of your brain that requires you to have no distractions. Yeah. If you're distracted by a phone or you're distracted by like a social media thought or whatever, I mean, I know I've been there and I have to get myself out. Like I'll be in a session, be like, oh shit, this would be really cool to post. Yeah. And I have to like get out. I'm not in there. I'm not in that headspace, and I'll have to come back. Yeah. I mean, I did it this morning and I was working on a gospel track, and I was like, oh man, this, like, we did a thing, and the trumpet player Vinny Shashowski was there, and he ripped this thing. Yeah. I'm like, oh man, I wish I got that on nope. Back. Yeah. service what's here.
It'll be fine.
Know?
Yeah.
But you have to. I think you have to. The thing that some of the people that complain about it is they don't have that thing to try to capture something.
Maybe.
And I think that's a skill that you can that is important, and maybe you can work on. I mean, I always work on it, but now I'm working on not doing it.
Yeah.
Because you can get into a place where it's a little bit too much.
It just kind of takes over. It's
way
too much focus.
And it's like a dopamine thing everybody talks about. It's like
for
the likes
sure
and all that shit.
Yeah.
But let me play devil's advocate on that and get your thoughts. I was driving back from California and I got pulled over by an Oklahoma state trooper.
Oh man.
For guess what? Driving in the fast lane.
Oh, I gotcha.
That's Oklahoma. That's a thing.
They got nothing else to do out there.
Yeah. So he pulls me over, knocks on the window. He's like, "Hey, you're driving in the fast lane. You know, whatever. I'll give you a warning. Please step out of the car."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh shit! I've been driving for 10 hours. Get out of the car, sit in his car, and we start bantering. And he's totally cool. I'm in the passenger seat, totally cool, back and forth, really cool. But I know he's digging for information.
Oh yeah.
So he's digging and digging and digging for information, and I'm telling him where I'm coming from. And immediately I'm coming from California, so he thinks I'm running drugs to Tennessee.
Yeah.
So he asked me 3 times, like, why were you there? Who are you with? All that stuff. So we get to the end of the conversation. He's totally cool. He's like, listen, the thing prints out. Listen, I'm going to give you a warning.
Cool.
I'm like, great, man. Thank you. He honored his word, and nothing I said concerned him because I had nothing in the car. He asked, so then I was sitting there and I was late and my hands were sweating because I'm nervous. I'm sitting in the damn police car.
Yeah.
I've never been arrested, My mom was like an auxiliary cop and I'm talking to him like, oh yeah, my mom and I were just watching live PD. And like, he's like, I hate that. We had a good banter.
Yeah.
So he reaches and he shakes preface. So my hands are sweating.
Yeah.
And he goes, man, I've never been to Nashville. I'm like, man, you got to go. Like, I see you're a country fan because I've been watching his radio station turn over to each song.
Yeah.
And it got to a song of an artist that I had just recently played with. So I said, I see you're a country fan. He goes, yeah. He goes, yeah, I am. I said, yeah, you should come to Nashville. And he said, yeah, I might do that. And I was like, funny enough, I just played with this person.
Yeah.
And his tone, he shook my hand, my sweaty hand, and I said that I had just played with him. It just shifted.
Yeah.
He's like, sir, if I search your car, will I find drugs in there? Oh, and I was like, no. And then it was like, he's like, when was the last time you used? And I'm like, dude, I don't use. Like, I'm on a green card. Like, I'm waiting for my green card. Like, I don't do drugs.
Yeah.
And he finally let me go. But it triggered as I was driving the next 3 hours with the radio off, going like, what just happened? It's like, man, people outside of our bubble don't really get get it,
Not at all.
So I see the social media thing and I see thinking about this state trooper if he had an Instagram account or whatever. And he was following you and saw you in the studio with one of his favorite artists. He's going to be like, holy crap, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And this guy looked at me and didn't believe that was true to the point where he thought I was lying, which made him think that there was drugs in the car. So I was like kind of thinking to my head, like, man, people we can get into this little world of, oh yeah, I just did a record for whoever, and we don't think anything of it because they're just people and we're used to it. But outside of our sphere, it's this important thing. You know? And I wonder what you can do to turn that into something that gets more attention for what your art and your craft is. As an artist,
gotcha.
I would see where people like to be associated with somebody that's cool or somebody that's doing something cool. Like, I wonder, as a mixing engineer, if you were to give advice to people because you're great at it, like the way that you do it, in the mixing world or the production world or whatever, for somebody that is in Texas, well, Texas is probably a good example. Let's take, Idaho, Boise, Idaho, who's, maybe listening to this is like, oh my God, I want Jonathan to mix my thing. What would turn him on? What turns his, what have you learned and seen in social media? What positive elements of that could you see where people... how do you use social media in a way where you can reach people outside of our sphere? And do you find that on your feed, that you're seeing any of that?
What's weird, the thing about, Nashville's so amazing. If you're into music and you're into making records, I always forget, especially when I go back to Dallas and I go hang out with my friends who have studios down there. I'm pretty spoiled now. Because it's there's amazing players everywhere. There's great gear everywhere. There's great rooms. And it's I go back there and it's pretty questionable.
Yeah. We get used to a certain standard.
And it's I can take a photo of this vintage 47 or whatever that's been used on whatever record, or this studio where all these records were made. And to some kid coming up, like, that's like the dream.
Yeah.
Because in his town, like, that would never, he has zero access to that.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think that
Are you aware of that? Like, because it threw me for a loop. I was like, holy shit, I forgot that people, like, that's a big thing for people.
Yeah, like, I mean, the building I'm in now, like, it's just so nice. Like, even when I go to other spots in town, I'm like, oh, yeah, like, you know, because Peter's always remodeling and fixing stuff and upgrading things because he can. And it's like, I'm like, oh, this is y'all's kitchen? Okay. Or like, you know, just like little things. Just it's so nice and it's clean. Everything works all the time. Everything's newish. Like, you know, and it's like you go to Dallas to these studios and half of it's broken and, you know, it's cheaper gear and, you know, they're playing me stuff and I'm like, oh yeah, you guys can't call these legendary session guys. I mean, they can, but, you know, to get guys in the room down there, it's very different.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, you can't just make a phone call and get this, or have these dudes at your spot in 2 hours and get unbelievable parts down.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, we are very lucky.
Oh, so lucky. I mean, I would say even when I was in LA, like, even that doesn't touch just the proximity, like the density of Nashville, of neighborhoods like Berry Hill or Music Row, or even like the west side of town or East Nashville. It's insane. Yeah. Like the number of studios, the number of musicians, the talent of everybody that's working, like it's crazy. Like if you need anything, I can call a handful of people and I can borrow whatever or get my hands on something or rent a room or, you know, it's just you can get things done at a very high level on a Monday morning at the last minute if you need to. And that just doesn't exist, I would say, anywhere else on the planet. Like,
yeah, I never thought about the density of this town as far as that's concerned.
It's just so compact.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, living in New York City like that too, I noticed that too, the studios are so far apart. And you're right. I mean, it's like if a buddy of mine had something in Brooklyn that I wanted, it was an hour and a half before I could get to him.
There, it's like, I mean, I walk across the street and Paul Moak's spot's right there. Nice. And there's Vance and Mitch and Addiction's around the corner. And there's House of Blues and Ryan Hewitt and then Blackbird D's over there. And you've got VK and Westlake and Guitar Center and a coffee shop and plus all the other studios. You should have said the coffee shop
first.
Yeah. But it's unreal. Like, you know, the people and the records that are made there every week. And
well, what about, I mean, you know, some of those studios I've been in and I've worked with the owners, and it's like when you just talk about those studios, and that's the thing about borrowing gear or whatever. The thing about this town that's so fascinating and interesting to me is just how gracious and kind people are, you know.
Very collaborative. Whereas I remember being in North Texas and it was very competitive. Everybody was fighting for whatever.
The scraps.
Yeah, you know. And there wasn't, I remember even doing like some jazz records when I first started recording, and people would get weird about coming in and playing a solo on something. Like, whereas here it's like, yeah, man. Like
weird about like getting paid, weird about
everything, getting paid or not being.
What's it
just
for?
Like silly, dumb stuff that, what's it for? We're like, oh, we're going to get paid or, you know, or I'm not going to do that because it's very cliquey kind of at times. And here it's like everybody just works with everybody. I'm friends with most of the other mixed dudes in town. We hang out. We're friends. We text each other all day. Like, ask each other for advice. Like, and I mean, I guess technically, sure, like we compete for work, but that's the other thing that's amazing about this town is just like there's so much work. Yeah. I'm like, how are we all doing this full time and making a pretty good living? Like, I can't complain. I'm not a wealthy man, but I make more money than I ever thought I would when I started. And it's like, how are we all doing this? This is kind of crazy that we're in this tiny town. And we're all able to, there's enough work for everybody, and probably even more that I don't even realize. Every now and then I meet someone new, some new producer in some scene, and I'm like, oh, you do all this stuff all the time? Like, Jesus, okay. You know? Yeah. And that's what's really crazy about this town is just the amount of music that just goes on here that's recorded.
Would you say
and
that's
written
your
and made? And
that's your favorite part of this town, or would you say your favorite part is that it's just you're always kind of in a room getting better and being around people that help you get better?
probably all of it.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, yeah, in order to be in the room, there needs to be enough work. You know.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because that was the thing about Dallas too. Is there just wasn't a ton. There's no songwriters down there. There's no music business. There's great musicians for sure, but it's like they're all playing gigs and going to school or whatever. There's a Texas country scene that's, you know, a thing, but those guys aren't in sessions all the time.
No.
Like it's a completely different thing. So for recording, it was a lot of posts. Like I think my first real job was at Funimation, and I guess it was in Louisville or Flower Mound at the time, and I was a Pro Tools engineer. We'd record like all the Dragon Ball Z
Oh, sweet.
overdub.
Oh,
Like
I gotta ask you if you know a
they
friend.
would do all that stuff.
Yeah, I forgot about they did that.
Yeah,
thing.
there's what was his name? I'm
Meredith.
blanking.
Do you remember Meredith? She used to sing lead in the big band that I used to work with. She was one of the
Maybe.
voices on Dragon Ball Z.
There was her.
forgot about
There was a
that.
French horn player. I forget his name. He was a North Texas guy.
He did one of the voices.
Yeah, he was like the green character, the Piccolo. I think.
I don't know any of their names.
Yeah.
I used to always at the trip. I'd be like, "What'd you do today?" She'd be like, I recorded this in this
Yeah.
episode," and
They did all that
crazy.
stuff and cranked it out there. It was started by like 2 guys.
Wow.
And it's this massive thing out there now. But there's a lot of post work, you know, which is cool, but it's not that creative.
So you were
for
just
me.
you were engineering mostly.
Yeah, and I was just
Were you
producing
mixing it
bands
too?
and developing stuff
Okay,
because if you wanted to record a band, like it was way easier to just go find it or make it than to sit around and wait for somebody to call you, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, that seems to be your MO. I'm gonna go do it.
yeah,
I'm not gonna sit around and wait for somebody to bring it to me.
yeah, for sure.
Do you think that has like dissipated over the years or gone down a little bit? Or
It's not,
I know those things kind of mean the same thing. I don't mean it in a negative way.
I mean, I still go out and try to find things, and I did some artist development last year with a band that we ended up getting them a deal with Columbia, which was cool. And so I'm always looking for, these days though, I really have to be into it, you know, to want to sink the cash and go all the
And your
way
time,
and
too.
write, you know, because like we would hang out and just write like all the songs, and I don't really do it like the typical Nashville thing. I like to write with the band so it sounds like the band, so it's unique. I think that's important. And that just takes time, and it's like, unless I'm just a fan truly, like I'm not really into that side of it. So
Dude, your love of music, I didn't know it was that deep. I mean, it's like it's infectious. Like it's
yeah, I think you have to be like borderline a little crazy and obsessed I think we're all probably more obsessed than we should be with music.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's hard. Like when I go back home, it's sometimes hard to like relate to people. I'm like, you don't like your job, you come home. I'm like, that sounds depressing.
Yeah. Well, how
know?
do you look, I've thought about it a lot. It's like, I always make the joke that the one thing that's always there in your life and will always be in their life, you'd think it would be, your family or whatever, but eventually they're not going to be there.
Yeah.
But music will be there until we die. And
Yeah.
music is there through tough times, through all your relationships, all that stuff, whether it's up or down. I wonder, I guess we just, as human beings, we just give it the loyalty that we feel that it deserves for always being there when we need it, right?
Yeah, like spot on. I remember it was therapeutic for me. I remember in college, like when I was going through a lot of bad stuff, like, I would sit, as long as I was in a practice room, like working on some transcription or whatever for I could sit there all night and I wouldn't feel like shit. But I hated breaks. I hated winter breaks. I hated summer breaks because you go from, like 1,000 classes and you're working all day and night to like just practicing and gigging and a lot of downtime. And,
What to do now, yeah.
yeah, but it's like if I was practicing, I was good because I had a place to focus my mind and I was working on something, getting better at something. And but if I was just left to my own devices, like, oh yeah, like drinking and drugs and whatever, probably, like a lot of people. I always feel, I don't know if it's arrogant, but I always feel kind of bad when I talk to people that don't have one of those hobbies or whatever in their life. Like, like, what do you do? Like, well, I'm married. I'm like, yeah, but like, what? You play golf? Do you watch music? Like, what do you?
When
play
you say the
video
word
games?
"do," is it what do you have that you're trying to get better at?
Or like,
Or
what's
are
your
you
passion in
passionate
life?
about?
Or
Okay.
and it's like a lot of people out there just have nothing, and that's a big struggle for them. I always consider myself very fortunate to have found music early on and have had that switch go off.
Do you think that everybody has kind of a creative thing inside of them?
I think so, but I think a lot of people don't find it because they're maybe a little too narrow-minded, or they're not as open to,
Or scared?
yeah. Because I don't know, it's kind of like looked down upon maybe in certain circles. I remember just even when I was going to college for music, like my cousins are all like business doctors, like bankers, like up the middle, and I remember just the feeling of them staring at me and being like, "What's
Like a zoo animal.
Why are you doing a music degree? Like, what are you gonna do?" And it's like, I don't know, figure it out.
Well, I mean, if I were to give advice to my younger self,
Yeah.
I would probably say do what you did, but
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody, like you've said before when we were talking about it, and I agree with you, where I don't know if it is for everyone, because the degree isn't important. That's what people think. They think the degree is important, but it's the least important thing that you're doing.
Oh, it means, I know people that are killing it that don't have a music degree at all. It comes much down to just your drive and passion and you as a person.
And school doesn't teach you, and I've thought a lot about this. Like, I thought about when I get older, like what I want to do to give back, because we should all think about that. Like, how do we help other people try to do whatever they want to do and be a positive influence? But I wonder, like, North Texas never taught us about business, never taught us about like how to record but then you see some of these schools that do all that, the ones that go to Berkeley, the ones that do all that stuff, and first of all, they're already behind the times. Yeah. Because it's the business is moving so quickly. Like, we're sitting in my studio talking, and you're like, man, I've just sold all my outboard gear because plugins are too good now. Like, I have a few pieces, because it's like, but then a music business school doesn't have that in the curriculum. It'll take 10 years for them to figure that out. Not to say outboard gear is not good. It's always great. You should learn how to do that. But it doesn't teach you the ability to go with the flow. It's like, I think you can get everything you need from YouTube, If you were a kid, obviously you need the hands-on experience.
I go back and forth with my degree now that I have a little distance on it. It's a very like love-hate relationship. When I think about the value for the check, there's definitely some stuff that didn't really stack up, like that I felt like I should have gotten that I didn't. But I learned how to learn. I learned work ethic there. I learned how much time it really took to be good and show up and do the gig. And I see a lot of kids don't have that don't go there, like, I think.
So it taught you kind of the discipline of what it takes to be like an art, like a person, I guess that, in this industry.
In that tough skin and that failing and still trying and sort of that whole learning how to learn entrepreneurial thing, like, yeah, like, I mean, you went to North Texas. Like, nobody's going to hold your hand. You show up and you figure it out, or you go home.
Well, that's the misconception in this industry is, they watch the TV and they watch all this stuff, and it's like people are showing up late and they're cool and they're doing this. It's like, if you're running the session and you're forking over the money, like I listened to this thing about LL Cool J and his job, and he's like, he has a studio now, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll roll in a couple hours late. I'm like, because that's his studio, and he's paying the bills, and it's LL Cool J,
and he can do that,
and he can do that, but it's
his dime.
You have to, like, if I were to hire somebody and my ass is on the line for them to sit next to me and they show up late, they're never getting hired again. Like, it's done unless something happened, and I respect that, but But it's not going to happen again. Yeah. And that's like people joke about what are the things you need to do in the industry. It's like show up on time, keep your mouth shut, and be a good person. And then be a good player. Yeah. But those three happen first.
Yeah, it's all the intangibles. You know, like, are you trustworthy? How do you treat people you don't need anything from? Can you show up on time? Are you dependable? Like, are you entitled? Are you humble? Are you helpful? Like. Are you the kind of person that people can count on? It's all that. kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, are you pretty drama free? Like, I know, especially looking back, like I remember going to school and hanging out with some guys down there that were just obscene players. Like, could have had the world. If it was based on chops alone,
yeah,
they could have called their chair wherever they wanted. But like, they were a fucking wreck. Couldn't show up on time. They were a pain in the ass to deal with. Nobody wanted to be around them. It just wasn't worth it. You hit a point where it's like, I don't care how good you are. I don't want you on the fucking session.
Yeah.
You know,
because
these other guys are just as good. Yeah. And the funny thing about that is, like, especially like working on like commercial records, and you don't really have to be some beastly chop master to play a lot of these lines. It's you know.
Well, I mean, I've talked about it before. It's like you're servicing something that's more important than yourself.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to, you know, put a round hole in a square, whatever, it's just like it's not going to work. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, you're trying to make a piece of art that's. Yeah, people don't realize that, because that ego pops up and they just want to show how important and special that they are.
Look at how smart I am. Look how clever I am.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad. I see that a lot with the younger people that come into sessions and stuff like that, or on a gig where that was something that I had to learn. And I think that you know, I was a chop fiend when I was in college. Like I couldn't play fast enough, and I worked hard to play faster.
Yeah, and
I had to learn how to service the music, especially when I came to Nashville, like almost 11 years ago, where somebody would show me something and I'd have to learn. I mean, I would never. Where it started would be, I would probably play something that's a little too notey and be like, hey, can you play a little more sparse?
Yeah.
And that happened enough times where you're like, okay, if you're self-aware enough, you're like, no, you know, I'm not going to make them have to tell me that one more time.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it's a pop 80s thing, like just play a beautiful melody and a beautiful register on the horn that they want.
Great sound.
And play the 16-bar solo the way that they want it, and then you see how excited they are, and you're like, job done.
Play it in tune, play it in time.
Yep. Service the song.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I first started doing records down in North Texas, I remember I'd hire like some of these jazz guys, and they'd come in and like trying to get them to play on like pop records or whatever, and it's like, could you play like half as many notes in that verse? Or like, you know, we just need like 3 notes, make it sound pretty, and do this with the tone. And it's like a lot of them just couldn't get it, or they weren't into it because they felt like it was beneath them, or those guys. Yeah,
man, I was there. I know.
Well,
I was there.
Everybody's been there. I was there in college. You know,
I mean, you listen to like Mark Rivera on these Billy Joel records, or like any of these saxophone players. You're like, oh my god, I could play way better than that guy. And then you realize as you get older, it's like, holy shit, it's not about that. It's about what he did on that track. Yeah, it's memorable. You know.
That was the perfect part for that track on that day, and for whatever reason, he's the one that came up with it, and for all time, that's, you know, it's there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. It's funny how.
And that's hard to do. Like I love minimalist anything because it's hard. It, like logo design or like poster design, or even like with songs, like especially with like pop music these days, there's not a lot of tracks anymore. Like it's usually very minimal stuff, but it's very clever, and it's, you know, that's tough to do. When
you say there's not a lot of tracks, you're saying there's like not a lot happening and going on at one time.
Yeah. It'll be like a bass, you know, a drum thing, a kick, a snare.
Yeah, we were just talking about that last night.
A couple keys, like not a ton. Whereas like I think, you know, 6 or 7 years ago, it was just a mountain.
Like a Max Martin. When you look at I've seen some of his mixes, and it's like,
they're massive,
tons. Yeah,
like 100+ tracks, whatever. But now it's pretty. But even then, though, like pop music has always been very clever, and that stuff's hard to come up with, even if it's just like a sound or a thing, or like a, you know, like the auto-tune thing. Like, you know, it got overused for sure, like everything in commercial radio, but it's like, to have the balls to pull that off and sell it, and for it to blow up, like, good on you, man. Like, I wouldn't have thought to do that, you know, and nobody else did. Otherwise, they would have done it already. So,
yeah, when you step back and you had without the judgmental eyes, and you start looking at things and going, "Wow, where did that come from? Yeah. Why did that person do that?" And it's not so much about I think maybe the older we get, the more we think about how do we have longevity in this career and how do we have longevity doing what we love to do. And you gotta respect, like talking about Justin Timberlake, I respect the shit out of him. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna go buy his record.
Yeah.
But I respect him, and it's you gotta take elements, I think, of those people that are and I think when you're in school and you're coming out, you're just it just becomes like we talked about earlier, like Nashville, we're so lucky and we can't forget that there's an Oklahoma officer like in that world that thinks that that's a cool thing. Whereas for us, it's like, this is just what we do. Like you're sitting in a studio with Kid Rock, you got nominated for a Grammy. It's like you just don't think about those things because you're so focused on what's next.
Yeah.
And they always say, sports guys always say, it's like, I want to look back on my career when I'm done, not when I'm in it. Because as soon as I start looking, it's like the hockey players say, as soon as I start looking at my past or admiring my past, I get hit.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know. I always think about, because everybody leaves some sort of legacy when they go, good or bad, and like a lot of people work these jobs and it's like they work for some dude to pay for his yacht or whatever. But I don't know, when it's all said and done, it'd be cool to look back and be like, wow, look at all this cool stuff. Look at all these awesome people I got to meet and work with, all these great records I got to make. I was fortunate enough to somehow make this a job and pay, because that in itself is a privilege, like that I don't think a lot of people get.
Yeah.
Like if you're able to show up in this town and afford yourself the ability to do this every day for a living, like, dude, like that's a privilege. Like that's not work. Like my mom worked in hospitals with cancer patients. My dad was a roofing contractor. My grandpa was a house framer. Like those are not fun jobs, dude. And they did it every day whether they wanted to or not. And so it's like, okay, you can complain. Like I don't get to complain. Like I really don't. Like I got to the studio at 10 a.m. today, worked, came over here to hang out at 3.
Yeah.
Like, no, I had nobody coming down on me. Like, it's fine.
What do you do? I mean, I know you're an incredibly introspective human being and you think a lot about life and stuff. What do you do to keep yourself in a place where you're perpetually grateful for being in that place?
That's the trick.
Everything becomes relative and you just start getting, as human beings, I mean, it's not you, it's everybody. It's like a guy that has a yacht goes, maybe I want a bigger one.
Yeah, isn't that the thing? Like everybody always wants the newer, better.
Yeah. How are you just happy? Like obviously we can have this conversation and go, holy shit, we are lucky. Yeah. I mean, is that what it is? Is it people around you?
I think it's tough. I mean, every now and then I think you do have to pull yourself out of it and kind of realize, I think it is important to look at your past and see how far you've come. And I try to do that once or twice a year. Like, I mean, even when I was debating, like, all right, I'm going to go to Nashville. And if I can't get anything to happen, and like, I was going to give myself like 3 years. Then like, I don't know, I'm going to pull out and go do some web thing or be a banker. I don't know, whatever. I'll figure it out. And, it's like every year you stop, you look at the bank account, you look at the people you're hanging out with, you look at the records you're working on, and it's like, all right, what's better than the year before?
Yeah.
Cool, I guess I'll stay. Like, things are going good. And it's like, as long as you're happy, but it's like, you got to look backwards and kind of, if you can keep that perspective of like, oh man, remember, or it's, I think paying attention to other people, stepping outside of yourself grounds you a little bit, when... That's why I love podcasts, and I think books are so important because you get to look into someone else's life and be like, oh shit, that sucks. Like, I'm so grateful for, sitting here on a Monday morning by myself at 10:30. I just got to work. Yeah. I'm prepping some song, listening to a podcast. Like, okay, life's pretty good. Like, I don't think I'm going to complain about
that a peaceful
client.
Peaceful thing for you, though? Like, is that a peaceful existence? Like, because I know as self-employed people, we can get to a place where we're like, oh shit, when's the next check coming? Like, are you in a peaceful place?
These days, yeah.
Good.
It wasn't always, like that. But that's why you work hard, and hopefully you're preparing. And but yeah, it's like, I'm fortunate. But I've also put my hours in. I've done my 10,000 hours twice over, and if you earn it and you work hard, like, yeah, man, like, you don't have to, like, I was talking to my niece about this. She's going into high school, and I'm like, everybody's like asking her, like, oh, you want to go to college and do this stuff? And I'm just like, you don't have to go to college, right? She's like, what? And I'm
I
like,
bet the family love that.
like, you could do this or this, or like, you could start your own business and like, you could make more than your parents in like 2 years if you got smart.
Yeah.
And she's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like, that's a different world. Like, 2019 is an amazing place to be. Like,
Amazing. Yeah.
you know, like, don't go work at Chick-fil-A. Just go deliver groceries for Shipt or something
Yeah.
and do your own thing. And now you've got flexibility. And if you want to do this other stuff, you can.
Yeah.
And it's going to be fine. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. Like, you don't have... I think a lot of people have that old operating system of life that doesn't really
I mean,
map.
our generation was driven home into us.
Yeah.
I mean, we are the outliers as far as far as what, what is the norm.
Yeah, I grew up. You go to college, you get a degree, you work hard.
Get married, have kids.
Yeah.
And all of a
And
sudden
it's
you're
like-
35 and you're like, huh, where am I? Where am I? What am I doing?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh,
And
I
that's
feel it
great.
all
Some
the
people
time.
are at 35 and they're like, this is great.
Yeah.
I love this.
It works really well for them.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, I don't know. I never liked the idea of, I don't know, like your career is just such a huge part of your life. And you know, most people go to their job 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. You do the math on that for 80 years, if you're lucky. It's like, you should probably go for it.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't just settle for
Yeah.
a $50,000 check.
Yeah.
You know, like, if you're gonna sink that much time into something, like, hopefully you enjoy it. You know, so it's worth the risk. You know, so.
Was it? I love that post that you posted the other day. I don't think it was the one I saw today though, where it's like, live your life like you have the fuck you money already.
Oh, I don't think I posted that one.
That might have been someone else's today that I read.
Sounds like a good one though.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was the second page of the post too, which is
Okay.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll try
yeah.
to find it and send it to you.
Yeah.
But the element of that one that you said the other day was like, why not? Why not just do it?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, like, I've seen people that lose everything, like 20 years into a career. And it's like, and then, I don't know, I just think it's not as bad as people, like, nothing bad happens. Like, I don't know, the risks aren't as crazy as people think they are. It's like, I don't know.
Well, I
like-
mean, we live in such a fear-based society. I mean, I'm working through that personally. It's
Yeah.
like not being scared of certain things and certain elements of life
I'm the
because you
same
just,
way.
I mean, we all are.
Yeah.
And I think the ones that make it the furthest are the ones that live outside of that fear or are able to realize that it's just fear.
Well, it's like that's kind of the trick too. I used to get really nervous when I played, like, and it was really bad early on. But then as soon as I realized that nothing really happens,
The
when you
world is
fold,
not going to end.
Like, if you fold, like, nothing happens.
Yeah.
Like, literally nothing happens.
Yeah.
You're just like, do better next time. You know, your teacher might give you some shit. But whatever, you paid tuition. They're still going to show up next week. Like, and you're going to have another shot at it. And your bank account's the same. You still have your friends. You still get to go home. You're still going to wake up the next day. So...
But I think that fear bubble exists.
You know.
So such as we're small and as we get older, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Like, yeah, the way that what we were scared about my trumpet or my saxophone teacher. I'm thinking Mike Steinau showed up for Improv 4 and I couldn't play over like a Wayne Shorter tune, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's like I think about that now and I'm like, oh my god.
Who cares?
You know, but. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's got to be a practice because it's a habit that we all live in. I mean, we're inundated with it on television.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
See, that's
let's
just
not
what
get into politics, but you see the fear is everywhere because when we're all scared,
Yeah.
we're more apt to be controlled.
But that's what I always loved about music was that being under the gun, it was intimidating, but it was fun. And it was like once you figure out that nothing happens when you fold, it sort of gives you...
It
makes you
actually is a
better.
good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah,
'cause
we
then you
talked
start
about
going for
failure.
it.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
start to see where those limits are, and you're not afraid to try things and get in the room with certain people, and you realize that, like, you can do a lot more than maybe you originally realized, and that's a great thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I had a really good friend in college, my roommate, that was like one of these guys. I've always been more calculated. I like risk, but I like calculated, like extremely calculated risk. And like, dude, Kai would just fucking go for it. Like, he didn't care. Like, but the thing is like you watch him and it's like half the time he'd nail it.
Yeah.
You know, or he'd be like, whatever. Like, I'll just transpose the French horn part. Give it to me. I'll play it right now. Let's go. Like, on the gig, I'm like, you're totally gonna fuck this up. And it's like, he might whiff a couple things, but it's like, dude, he killed it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what do I know?
Yeah.
You know, I love those things. Like, Sessions. That's what's exciting about sessions too. Is it's like every now and then, like I always bring a bag of just weird stuff, pedals or whatever, and I'm like, let me patch this in real quick. And sometimes it's a total failure, but every now and then it's like, okay, cool. Like everybody's really into it.
Yeah.
So any of those moments are good to chase after, because even if it doesn't work out, it's like, dude, you're just working on a song. Like nobody died. Like I always thought people getting upset and angry in the studio over music was kind of silly. I'm like, dude, you're yelling about a song right now.
Yeah.
Like, those band directors that, you know,
you're not playing that note short.
Yeah. Like, dude, calm down, man.
Somewhere that's affecting a butterfly, that's affecting a bird, that's affecting a plane.
We're not curing cancer here, dude. Like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna show up tomorrow and we'll get another shot, and you know.
Dude, so I mean, when you say that, it's like the way that I think about that. When we talked about phones and we talked about social media, I think the end of it is, and I'm deep in this world right now too, and I'm curious about your opinion of it, of just trying to be more present in that moment and being present in that to allow that part of our brain that we're accessing that we don't normally act, like it's not tangible like a body part.
Yeah.
Like you're accessing a part of your brain, and the more distracted you are, the more difficult it is to access that part of your brain. So have you taught yourself, like where does distractions come? Are you just, it sounds to me like you're just one of those guys that when you're in it, you're in it.
Yeah, focus.
Yeah.
Like that's another one of those things too. Like that's just the great thing about music, or like anything, like sports, or like it's such a mental. A lot of times, like the barriers are just mental obstacles. It's like, oh well, you fucked up because you're worrying about the stuff that doesn't matter. So if you can just stay in the zone and listen, like half the time it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I've always just been good at that. My sister and I always joke. We always say that we were born 30 years old because we were always just a little more together than our friends, you know, as far as like, I don't know, the way we spent our time. Like I tried to be productive, or even these days, I don't really like just laying around, you know. I don't like wasting my time. I don't like wasting other people's time. So yeah, I don't know. I've always just had that.
Can we take a selfie for this podcast?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
But yeah, I don't know. I've just always been dialed when I need to be. Yeah. Like a switch, and I can turn it off.
Do you find that you're like time just like you're in that place and you get out of that place and it's like, oh shit, like 4 hours just went by? Like,
sometimes, but then there are also days when it's like, oh, it's
45 minutes went by.
10:30. I've been here since 9. Like, God, you know. So I don't know. I always felt like I had to learn to back off it. Like I was because I was always a pretty quiet kid, and so because of that, I was just sort of in my brain way too much, probably too focused, like over analyzing pretty much everything all the time. I still do that, and it's like I have to sort of like tell myself to back off. And
is that rooted in fear, or is that fear of not having not circling it enough to know that it's the right thing? Probably, maybe. I don't know. I've always been that way. I don't know why. I'm sure. Well, I like what you said. I mean, I feel similar, where it's like if a risk that you're going to take, it needs to be a well thought out, calculated risk. Yeah. I mean, why? Like, I don't know. I think education's really important. And I think it's maybe undervalued a lot, because it's like a lot of people are like, oh man, he just has it. And I'm like, no, dude. You can get help. Like, there's a book right there, or like you can listen to this, or like pay this guy and he'll teach you. Like, so why wouldn't you do that? Like, to me, it's just because it's easier for them to say that person's just got it naturally. Yeah. Like, oh, I'll never do it. This guy he just got it, man. I'm like, no, you're just lazy. I don't know. Yeah, I guess laziness is probably the way to describe part of it. I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. It's easier to tell or just to say somebody is. Yeah, they don't see the work that they put in. They don't see the time that they put in. Yeah, or it's like, man, that guy just makes it look so easy when he plays. It's like, well, yeah, like he's 40 and he's been doing it his entire fucking life. Like, it better be easy. Yeah. Like, I hope he's not struggling with that right now. You know, Timberlake talked about that on that thing. The very far front of that podcast, he said, and the cool thing about that podcast is that Oprah doesn't talk. She asks questions, but it's just them talking. That's cool. Answering questions. Yeah. But it's like a flow. And he goes, you know, it's interesting. I did an interview recently, and it was in like Germany or something. And he rolled in and he goes, the guy said, "I should hate you, right? I should hate you."
Yeah.
That's the first thing he said.
Wow.
Timberlake's like, I'm probably botching this up, but it's paraphrasing. I should hate you. And he was like, oh, and obviously I could imagine him going like, negative, I don't like negative. What's up? You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, because you make everything look so easy. And that's how he started it. He starts saying, he goes, that guy doesn't see the hours I spent in front of the mirror. No. That guy doesn't see the hours I spent listening to this, practicing this. It's like, so that I get out there on the stage, and it's just, I don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's when you know that you've put the time in.
It becomes a reflex, Yeah, you get to the point where if something's going to go wrong, you kind of know where it might happen because you've done it so much, And
failed so much.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just clocking your hours. But that's the thing. Like, you can't buy that. You can't cheat that. You can't order that on Amazon. Like, you have to sit there in the room and just
there's not enough money to buy that
and do it. So
yeah, we talked earlier about your person who will remain nameless that likes you to. I don't know if it was them mixing their tracks, or they just had kind of a garage band or whatever, but they had a lot of money and they just did it. And it's the same thing. We used to call them like saxophone holders, not saxophone players. They'd have like these $5,000 Mark VIs and whatever, and they're like doctors, and they just have it.
Doctors and lawyers,
they have it because they love it, and I think that's beautiful. But I mean, it's beautiful to an extent where that horn should be played by somebody, and it's sitting there crying.
Yeah.
But there is nothing can buy. Like, it's not the Matrix where you get that little in thing and you're like, I can speak French.
I wish it was, yeah.
And it'll be at some point, but it's not. It's got to put the work in. Man.
Yeah, like with anything though. I mean, if you want your bank account to look a certain way, like, well, you better start reading about finance and like start thinking differently and hanging out with different people, or if you want to lose weight, like, you better start learning about nutrition or your body more. If you want a better relationship with whoever, like, you've got to make an effort. Like, nothing's gonna. Where you're at in your life is a result of the habits you've had, and it's like, if you want to change, you're gonna have to change those habits to get a different result. So.
And realize that those habits don't change overnight. Those are things that you have to relearn, reprocess, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think people get into a place where like, oh man, I can never fix this. But it's like, well, how long have you given it?
Yeah, that's always the thing. What was that? I think it was a Joe Rogan thing I heard where they were talking about. It was a Jordan Peterson thing. He's asking him, like, he's big on. He's like, can people change? Like, can you turn it around? And I kind of agree with him. He's like, well, after 25, it gets hard. It usually takes a lot of pain.
He tells it like it is.
And it's usually pretty true. You see something bad happens to you that wrecks your world in some way, and then it's like, okay, enough's enough. I have to do this. And like, they'll stop smoking or whatever. They'll finally get control of their money, or they hit that rock bottom.
It becomes a thing where you have to. The first step is seeing your reaction to it in the negative light, and then recognizing the reaction, and then altering, and then that's the first step, and seeing it enough, and then it's changing your reaction until that becomes the reaction. Yeah. I mean, I relearned how to play saxophone when I was like 17 because I wasn't doing it right. And I remember my teacher would always say to me, he said, the first step of a habit is realizing the bad habit. And then the next step of the habit is realizing it and fixing it in the moment. And then until it becomes the habit, Yeah. And he's totally right. I did that. That's how it works. And I think that's the way with decisions and hard work.
That's why self-awareness is so important.
Yes.
So you can recognize that stuff and not be blind to it.
And I think everybody can work on that for sure. I mean, we all can get in our own heads.
Dude. Yeah. Therapy's awesome.
It is awesome.
I spend so much money on therapy.
Oh, me too, dude.
So much money on therapy.
It's brilliant. It's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Man, I hope that stigma goes away because I was in that world and I was like, I don't need it, But man,
I was like that at one point, but I don't know. I went early on because my family stuff, and so it was always sort of a normal thing to a point. And I don't know. I'm not huge on the antidepressants. I kind of think that stuff gets a little overprescribed. I'm not saying people aren't out there that need it, but a lot of times when I talk to my friends, I'm like, dude, you're not depressed. You just hate your fucking job.
Yeah.
Or like you're dating someone you don't need to be dating and you're stressed out about it. Like, you just need to learn how to live your life a little better. Like,
Or take a leap of faith.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, start dumping chemicals in your brain that you're playing with stuff.
Yeah, I've seen friends. I tried them for a little while, like 3 months, 4 months.
Same.
And I got off. I'm like, nope. It made me sleepy.
I never felt a change.
Did you?
I think it was probably a pretty low dosage. So, but I did them for like 2 or 3 weeks in college and didn't really feel anything. And I was like, I don't know, I just stopped and never went back. And
I think that, I've talked to some people, and I think the conclusion that I've come to on those is sometimes when people are just in a really bad place, it just lifts them up a little bit until they can get control again, and then they get off. Like, I think that could serve the purpose.
I think that's the way they're intended originally.
They were intended to be.
It's supposed to help you kind of focus enough to work on whatever the real issues are, and then as you get control of that stuff, you can get off of them and go live your life. But the problem is, like, a lot of people just think it's the Band-Aid, and that's just how life is for the last 60 years of your life or whatever. And I don't know, that makes me a little nervous. I'd rather
it's the Band-Aid instead of fixing the wound. Well, this guy hit me to this, and then I've been doing a lot of work on it. Is Mastin Kipp? Have you ever checked him out? He's big on traumas, which is we've had traumas in our life, and your trauma could be like your mom left you at the bus stop, you don't remember it. And I've been doing work with that, and I've been doing the therapy thing with a certain person, and then recently we started going into that, and that is insane. They like put these buzzers in your hand.
Wait, what?
Dude, you got to try it, man. They put these buzzers in your hand, and then they're like, they start talking to you about where you feel certain, like if you, they get to know you about what your kind of trigger points are.
Yeah.
And where you feel certain things in your life, and they get you to go to that feeling. And, I don't want to get too personal about it, but it was like it unveiled this memory of my childhood, of basically like a situation that happened where like it was a family squabble, and somebody that I really loved kind of alienated me, who I looked up to. Yeah. And it wasn't my fault. Yeah. And I was like, what did I do wrong? Yeah. And then I didn't quite finish the memory with my person, and I went to my parents and I'm like, hey, like this happened. And my mom was like, oh my God, yeah. You were like 4 or 5 years old, and this is exactly it. And I'm like, I don't remember that.
You end up blocking
it's crazy.
Stuff out, or
you block it out and
stuffed behind a bunch back in your brain or whatever. Yeah.
Dude, and you bring that to the light, and that's what Mastin Kipp's whole philosophy is. Bring that to the light, acknowledge it.
Then you can understand it, and then you can get past it or realize like, oh.
Yeah. His goal is to try to find, he said it was at the time when I was hip to him was when the election just happened. And he's like, there are millions of people billions probably around the world traumatized by what happened in the election in America. Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge trauma. And that trauma is deep inside of them, and it's affecting all of their daily lives. Oh, God, and I see it. I was just in California with, in a retirement community. I see it in all these people because they don't understand it. They can't understand why this person is the president of the United States with who he is as a person. And it's a daily trauma that they deal with.
Yeah, I believe that.
And his goal is, if we can all deal with our traumas, the world would be a better place. And I believe him now, having gone through that. Man.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's like just the more you learn about, things aren't just there because they're there. And I think a lot of people, like, you can learn about why you feel certain ways about certain situations or things. And, I see people, I'm like, you just need to read this book, man.
Because we're pre-wired.
It'll change your life. Like, there's a reason why you have this reaction to this thing, and you could get over it. Like, you just don't understand. And like, I swear to God, there's probably a reason for it. And I bet it was something that happened to you when you were 6, and you forgot about it, but it affected you in some way, and now you're just kind of sideways on it. And, I've had friends go through that, and they're like, dude, changed my life. I'm like, well, yeah, idiot. Here, finish the book now. Like,
yeah, I guess they call it's like neuroplasticity, where you're hardwired to go in a certain direction all the time, and you are capable, scientifically, of breaking those paths and creating new ones. It's like they talk about how it's like like a ski hill,
Yeah.
you know, making those indentations. Like you are capable of putting fresh snow on that and making a new path, you know, and that's what it's scientifically possible.
Now, with that said, though,
Uh-oh.
no, because I think about this a lot. Like, if you're like, maybe you take somebody that is trying to play sax or something, right?
Okay.
And
Which I don't ever want to
maybe
do.
they're like, maybe they're bad at it right now.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe they don't have a high aptitude for music. Can they eventually learn that and get that? Like, if they put in enough time, or is it just not?
I think so. I absolutely
Like,
think so.
can you become a better songwriter? I wonder, like, because I'm terrible with lyrics. I'm good with parts and music, but it's like, I don't think I could ever be a good lyricist. Even if I spent
That's
all day.
interesting.
I've read lyric writing books. I've gone deep down that rabbit hole, and I just don't.
Well, I think the
know if I
neuroplasticity thing is a
rewrite my
reaction
brain
to
to-
an incident, not so much a skill that you
Gotcha.
can make better. I mean, I think that's my understanding of it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like if I were to say something rude to you, you would react in a certain way.
Yeah.
But if I were to say something rude to you maybe 20 years ago, not you or somebody else, they might have punched me in the face.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think you're rewiring like, okay, I don't need to solve this with violence. I need to solve this with, why did you say that?
Yeah.
So I think that's more what it is, as opposed to like, what are you put on this earth? Like, I don't
Like,
think,
could you rewire your brain to be more creative if you're not
I don't
naturally a creative person,
I think you could,
but you're interested in it?
I think you have to find your avenue of where your creativity lies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that I would be really badass at making quilts, but my mom makes great quilts.
Yeah.
You know, but because I don't want to if I put the effort in, maybe.
Gotta find your home. Because the logical side of my brain is like, oh yeah, just like clock the hours, get around the right people, listen to the right records, like you'll figure it out. It may take you 15 years, but you could do it. But then some people, I'm like, oh, you just don't have it.
Well, Jordan Peterson talks about that with males and females. He talks about how males are risk takers inherently, because I think in our DNA we are hardwired for, you know, as Homo sapiens for all the years. Like like men are typically more risk takers,
Gotcha.
and women are not. They're actually hardwired to care for an infant, and that's why he gets in so much gender trouble, because women are like, no, I can be a risk taker, and he's like, yeah, absolutely you can. I'm just saying this is the typical thing, and he says that's why you see job discrepancies and pay discrepancies between men and women, because men are more apt to go to their boss and say, why aren't you paying me X amount of dollars, whereas women don't want to take that risk because they don't want to lose their job. That's why you see men in risky positions which pay more, and women are in more nurturing roles. Like that's why you see more female nurses, female doctors, doctors are a little different, but any type of like nurturing type of role, and that's just what we are. And his thing is, you just need to, whether you want to be a plumber, whether you want to be whatever, it's all fine, but you have to find your thing. So he believes that you have a thing based in your DNA about what you are,
like
and
an
what
aptitude
your path is for something.
Whatever that thing is.
Like I could maybe do it, but I don't. Like an electrician, like that's just overwhelming to me. Like I've tried to get into that headspace.
Yeah, I have zero desire.
Yeah.
I was talking to a tech at the studio the other day, and he's going off about, I don't even remember, the inside of some metal box that I don't give a shit about. And I'm like, yeah, man, but what happens when you turn the knob all the way to the right? Like, is it brighter or darker? I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's where it ends. Like, I don't care about the screws. I don't care about the wiring or the transformers. I don't geek that hard on it. It's like, okay, but when I turn this to the left, what happens? Okay, cool. I think I could use that. And that's where it stops, you know? Because,
as Rogan always talks about, there's only so much capacity in here, in our brain, to accept new information. And you have to...
That's interesting.
Like, he's like, I don't care what happened when I was, something that happened to me when I was 10. Like, I forgot about that because I need to put something else in there. You know, I don't know if that's true. That's his philosophy. But it's like, you don't need to go down the path of understanding why that knob turns it dark when you turn right and bright when you turn left. You just need to know that so that you can go on to the next thing, you know? Like, I don't need to know why I flip that switch and that light goes on. I do now because I taught myself. But if you need me to rewire that, absolutely not.
No, I'm going to call somebody.
Yeah, you're going to call somebody.
I'm the same way.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the answer to that is. Like, I've met electricians that... just like that person you're talking about, they love it. Like that's their thing. They look at a map of a house and they're like, oh my God, I get to do this and put this here. And I'm like, great, go for it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Well, I've seen that in music too, when people are trying to find their path. And it's like, I remember kids in school that would want to be a band director more than anything. And they're just like, they're a genius in theory class. And I'm like, dude, you need to go do theory comp and go geek out on scores, go get your master's in musicology and be like a theory professor.
Yeah.
Like, that's your thing. But they'd want this other thing so bad. And I'm like, no, dude, like, you're bad socially. This is not going to work out for you as a teacher, you know. Or, you know, people that want to be players that, maybe they're great managers or they're great PR stuff or I don't know. Like,
but then, okay, I'll play devil's advocate on that. What about what we said earlier where it's like if you want something, just go for it?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like,
like
could you forge it into existence with enough, you know, willingness and time and open-mindedness to think differently? I don't know. Because I would agree that naturally everybody kind of has a certain thing, their personality, their aptitude, their interests, they kind of add up to where it's like, oh, like, yeah, you're a great tracking engineer, or like you're a natural producer, you know, or
oh yeah, you could look at, I mean, my dad used to joke as a band director, I could look at somebody and tell them what instrument they should play. Like, and he was 99% of the time he would guess it.
I could see that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just his place. That's where he existed. He's a band director, and he's like, you're a clarinet player, you're a flute player.
Wow.
And he said typically when they didn't, I mean, he would never tell them that, but when they took something that wasn't what their thing was, they didn't do as well at it.
Yeah.
You know. So I mean, I one of the things I wanted to ask you about too about mixing engineers is like we talked about just an engineer in general. The best engineers I've ever worked with have a certain temperament.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's what they are. Like you can talk to them and you're like, man, if I had to pick you out of a room, you would be the person behind the board tracking, you know? And it's like, I think mixing engineers have that, like you seem to have what I would, you know, obviously preconceived idea of what a mixing engineer would be, but that ability, I mean, you go far above and beyond it, like you've explained with your creative energy and your production energy, but you have that temperament to sit there and just lose yourself in it. Yeah. You know? And I think you have to have that as a mix engineer.
Yeah. Well, I fell into it. I didn't even know what that was until I was writing, and my creative director hated all my songs. But she's like, man, your demos slam.
They sound good.
They sound great. Like, could you make this dude's demo sound as good as yours?
Wow,
and I was like,
interesting.
Okay, this seems way less stressful. And so that's how I started mixing and started doing demos, and you know, like in 12 years later, here I am. Yeah. Like, you know, but yeah, like I wanted to be a player, and then I wasn't good enough to do that. Yeah. And then I thought I wanted to be a producer and a writer, and wasn't good enough to do that. But through that, like I found like I was able to make sense of the parts and pull them together.
And you're okay? Like you're happy? Like this is what you feel like this is something. I mean, we're all like to be good at something.
Yeah. I'm comfortable. Like, you know, it's definitely the strong suit. You know, it feels good. It feels right. I like controlling. I mean, typically, you know, you do your own thing. I mean, you definitely work with other people, but most of the time it's just me in my room. Or I have an assistant that preps stuff for me offsite, so we'll work together sometimes. But yeah, it definitely feels right. If I'm the most comfortable of everything I've done, I'm at the most at ease and I have the most confidence. Just mixing,
getting a track and making it sound.
Send me your files. Like, I'm great at this. And I mean, even with mastering, like I'm terrible at that. I hate it.
I read that.
People try to ask me to do it, and I'm like, dude, no.
Call these guys.
Yeah, like literally, I have good friends that are great at it, and it's funny because like I hang out with Nathan Dantzler a lot, and it's like when we talk about records, like he's on a completely different mastering headspace level, just the way he geeks out on audio. Even I don't really consider myself an audiophile. I like stuff that sounds good, and I want the room to sound good, but like, dude, Nathan will show up with like lasers and a measure and like shoot the whole room out and measure it, and it's like I'd never, like when I set all my speakers up, I just paid someone to come do that because I didn't, like I just want to turn it up and have it sound good and do the job, but like I don't care about the science behind it. And so it's like, like this is why you're a great successful mastering guy, you know. I totally get it. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I mean, it's how lucky is he, and how lucky are you to have found your thing? I mean, not like How many percentage of the like world finds their thing? Like 15, maybe.
I would say less than that.
Yeah.
I always say it's like the 1% of the 1% that.
Wow, that's that little, eh?
I don't know. I mean, to be a person that gets to wake up every day and do what you want, and do something you like to do. Like most of the people that aren't in music I know, like I wouldn't say that they love their jobs. I think they like them and they like having a job.
And they're probably good at them because they're in there still. Yeah.
But if they had to choose it, I don't think they ever would have picked it. You know, I don't think anybody grows up wanting to do accounts receivable for a tech company or something. You know, like.
But you know, if we factor in that people may grow up and they may want to have 2 beautiful kids, be a baseball coach, be a soccer coach, you know, whatever, and that's their happiness, then obviously, you know, I think that
what supports that,
that
I get for sure.
That might raise that number a little bit because you know, it doesn't always have to be a job. It could be I just want to be a great mom or I want to be a great dad,
for sure,
which is totally fine too.
Yeah, debatably, I feel like the world probably needs more good moms and dads than more, you know, jokers like us like, making records all day.
Yeah, that would be,
you know,
that's a whole nother
probably be a better thing.
Yeah. Dude, well, I've taken up enough of your time.
Yeah.
And I want people to be able to find you. So, JonathanRoye.com, right?
Yeah.
Jon.
My name, JonAthan.
And then it's got an E at the end of Roye.
Yeah.
ROYE.
Instagram, Twitter, Facebook.
And that's the same thing?
Yeah, should be across all internet.
So if you're in Aurelia, Ontario, and you're a badass singer-songwriter in the basement of your mom's house, this gentleman, you need to call him.
Do you primarily have Canadian listeners?
There's a lot.
Is that the demographic?
Yeah. There's a few. There's been some in Japan. There's been a few.
Pretty all over.
People that reached out in the UK.
That's cool.
Yeah, mostly Canada and the US. But I'm just like
it's
you,
internet,
man. You started in 2012 with Mixed Notes, and this is the 16th podcast. So
that's another podcast, but that was very informative and interesting, and just to see what's possible.
Yeah, at a good
doing
time
stuff
too.
On the internet and what you can build for I know people that I haven't made videos in forever, but I have friends in that world that do ridiculously well, and just like
on YouTube
the money
and stuff like that,
and freedom, not even in music, just other channels, and you can snowball that, and there's so much. I mean, these people work like 2 days a week.
Really?
And like they just travel. My buddy Dan lives in Denver, has a house, but like he's gone. He'll buy like a one-way plane ticket to Portland. It's like, I'm gonna go here and chill. He's on his laptop. As long as he has internet, he's good.
Yeah.
And it's like he just sort of makes content online, and it's about stuff he loves, and he aggregates a lot of stuff and supports other professionals in the industry, and like dude, he makes a killing.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm gonna go see my parents in Massachusetts, so I'll be out there for 6 weeks or whatever, and then I need to go check on the house at some point, and it's just that's all you know. Him and his girlfriend just kind of travel around and live, and
yeah, and that's the risk, is you got to start that.
So I look at kids now and I'm like, dude, like you have no idea what you could do.
Yeah, Gary Vee always talks about that, about time. Like if I could buy one thing, I would buy time. Yeah. He talks to these kids that are like 18, 19, you know, and they're starting out. And they're like, I want to start a YouTube channel. He's like, well, go do it. You know, like, and just don't stop till you're 30.
Yeah, for sure.
And you'll be a millionaire. It's like, just go do it.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy.
That's the trick. Don't stop till you're 30.
And don't stop when it doesn't happen right away. Yeah. That's the key.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously, like you said, like at some point you realized that writing songs was like, that lyricist wasn't your thing. Yeah. But you tried. You gave it a shot. Yeah. You know? And it obviously, and the beautiful thing about the music industry is that if you take steps forward as a lyricist, it's only going to help when you get a track and you're like, hey, can you fix that second verse? Like that back half of that second verse. Like, I think you can say something different there. You know?
You're able to sort of relate to people's different
That's the key.
Perspectives.
Absolutely,
on the record or whatever. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, I think teaching yourself all those skills, it's never a waste of time.
No.
Like learning how to play golf. Like, it's never a waste of time. Because you never know when you could play golf. You never know. Like I remember that was so funny. It's like when I came to Nashville, that was a thing, and I met so many people playing golf.
I was terrible at golf.
I mean, I'm terrible too. Yeah. But I mean, I grew up playing, so I'm decent, decent enough to know what to do. But yeah, like you connect with people. Like that's what it's about relationships,
Yeah.
like you've said. It's like
Yeah.
if you get along with somebody on a different level and it's not the music level, that's more powerful almost than the music level.
When you're going to be the first person they think of when they need whatever.
Because you're Jonathan, you're a dude that we talk about the Preds with, or talk about, you know, like we hang and like talk about good bourbon. Or, like it's like, like you're not threatening, you're not whatever. You're just you, and you're a good person, and you do what you say, you show up on time, and that's all you need to be.
There you go.
Be good at your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, being good at your job is 3rd or 4th down the list at least, you know.
I always tell people, I'm like, you have to be good. Just put that in a, like, that's the easy quantifiable thing.
Yeah.
And
because
like,
you can control that.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can control, and you can put that in a box over here and nurture it and be like, as long as you have that, And the other stuff though, you know, that gets a little trickier.
Yeah.
Gotta be good.
Well, it's tough. There's a reason why not a lot of people get to do what you do. It's because it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many people that just never got a break in music, period.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, they were great, you know. So.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that never had a chance. We were lucky.
Yep.
All right, man. Well, we're gonna do this again at some point.
Cool. Yeah. Anytime.
Thank you for your time,
dude. Absolutely. Thank you.
Watch this heavy heart of mine turn this water into wine. Light your match and let it glow, so I know my way home. One more game of tic-tac-toe. You be X and I'll be you. Fall in love like dominoes, then I'll come back home. If I can't find you, go get lost in the simple things. Might I remind you, chase your tail and dream those dreams. One more glass to set me free. Forget right past what's in front of me. I'll be fine, they tell me so, 'cause I know my